Hi, welcome back to the Wow Embossing YouTube channel. It is Jane here, and today we're going to be using the new Heritage Quad by Seth Apter to create some layered stencil cards. Hey guys, how you doing? We are celebrating the release of the new Seth Apter Quad today. It is called the Heritage Quad, and when you buy a quad from Wow, you get, as the name would suggest, 4 different colours of powders which all work really nicely together, and they come in some little cardboard packaging like this. As you can see, I've already opened mine and I have swatched them all out. So these are the 4 colours in the quad. They are mixed media powders, so they've all got some lovely kind of texture to them. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera, but you can see how they are. Some of them are kind of raised and they've got that lovely textured feel to them. So the colours that we've got are Kiln, which is that beautiful red brown. There is Admiral, and then we have got this lovely kind of gold colour, which is Pumice, and then the final one is Castleton. So today I am going to be making, well, my plan is to use them to decorate some stencils. So when I saw the 4 colours, it reminded me of this Taylor Expressions Creating Quads layering stencil that I've got. Coincidentally, I think the colours are quite similar to the ones that they've used in their example there. So I thought what I might do is use these layering stencils to create 4 cards, and then I'll add in some detail with the embossing powders and some texture. So let's see how we get on. So because I'm doing some ink blending today, I'm going to use my Wow Superior Smooth White cardstock. And I'm just going to show you how these layering stencils work if this is something which is new to you. Most layering stencils have these etched lines around the edges, so you can see exactly where to line up your cardstock, and that way you know that each time you add a stencil, it's going to be lined up in the exact right place. So I'm just getting my swatch binder here. So these are my Simon Hurley inks, and I'm just placing each of the 4 embossing powders from the quad on top of some of my swatches, so I can get colours that are going to coordinate nicely. I'm basically looking for lighter shades than the powders because I want to add the detail with the powders later on, and I want that to really stand out. So obviously I just want a kind of softer version of those colours underneath. I'll list the exact colours that I've used in the description box below. I think this one is Sidewalk Chalk, which is a light pink, and I'm just using this for my first layering stencil. I've sped up the process because obviously today is not to talk about ink blending generally, but more to show you how to add some mixed media elements to your cards. So I'm just going to quickly run through all of this. Now that I've done my first layer, I'm going to peel off the stencil just to show you how this works. So it doesn't look like much at the moment because we've only done the first of our 4 stencils, but as you continue to add the layers, this picture will build up. So I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera here, but this says in the bottom right hand corner that it's stencil number 2, so I know that I need to go there next. I'm lining up the etched lines again, making sure that the ones in the bottom right hand corner of my page line up exactly, and then I'm going to go in with my next ink colour. So I'm not going to go through all 4 stencils because you get the gist, and this is the final product after ink blending all 4 colours on with the 4 layering stencils. I actually really like how that's turned out. I think they're really good, kind of nicely coordinating colours for the powders. So I've pulled some more products from my stash to turn these card panels into finished cards. I've got some little details that go over the arches of the rainbow, which I thought would be quite nice. And then this Gina K set, which has got a really big sentiment, which says, "Let him sleep, for when he wakes he will move mountains," which I thought would be good for the mountains. And then for the third panel, I think I'm just going to freestyle it with my embossing pen and add some details freehand. So here are the 4 panels. I have cut them down to 5 inches by 3.75 inches. And I've put my first panel into Misty. if you're wondering what that little triangle is that you can see on the left hand side, it's an accessory that you can get for the Misty when you don't want your card panel to be busting right up against the edges, because you've got a stamp that overhangs the edge like this one here, and it's just a way of holding your card in place, in another part of the stamp positioner. So that's what I'm doing here, and I've inked up my arch detail stamp with my embossing ink pad, and I'm just pressing that down over the arch, and I'm going to add some detail with the first of my embossing powders. So I'm giving it a good shake, which is always a good idea for the mixed media powders in particular, because a lot of them have various different components to them, and some may be heavier than others. So what you want to do is shake them up and make sure that any of the heavier elements to the powders have the chance to kind of rise up to the surface, and then you'll get a good mix of all the components when you add them to your project. My second detail stamp is a little bit smaller, so I've been able to pop my card panel into the corner of the Misty, no problem. And exactly the same process, I'm inking it up with my Wow embossing ink pad. I'm pressing it down so that I get a good connection with the card. I'm going to use the Admiral powder, which is the blue one from the Heritage Quad, to add in these little details, which are polka dots. And then I'm just going to tap the excess off onto some scrap paper and pour that back into the jar. I mean, you really don't need to use a lot of powder at all. It goes such a long way. So I had a few little stray bits of powder there that I didn't want, and I just used a dry brush to brush those away, and that's just because I think the ink is still a little bit wet, and also I've been handling the panel quite a lot, so the oils from my fingers have got on there and caused some of that embossing powder to stick. Now, those detail stamps didn't go all the way around the arches, so I grabbed my embossing pen and just drew on some extra dots and crosses so that it went all the way around the arch, and then I just added my embossing powder to those and heat set it. So I'm just moving on to my sentiment now. Again, I've got one of these little arch sentiment stamp sets, again from Tailored Expressions, and I'm stamping that down with some Memento Tuxedo black ink. And then just for a final little bit of texture and detail, I'm using the heart stamp, which came in one of those Tailored Expression stamp sets, and I am adding some hearts onto my panel. I've added 3 because an odd number of embellishments on a card is more pleasing to the eye than an even one. And then I am just adding some of the pumice powder over the top. Now, don't ask me why, but it only stuck to the top 2 hearts. It didn't stick to the bottom one. So I could have put that back in my Misty and stamped it again, but I was being a bit lazy and I grabbed my embossing pen and went over it. It was no problem at all. And then I just heat set it all. So I really like how that turned out, and it gave me the opportunity to use 3 of the powders from the quad. And I feel like it really livened up that card. It just gave it a bit of texture, a bit of shine. It's just that extra bit of interest to really kind of level up your card making. The second panel that I'm working on is a little more straightforward. I have inked up this large sentiment from that Gina K stamp set, and I'm using the pumice powder again. Again, I'm just going in with a dry brush where there's areas where there's a little bit of embossing powder has gone, where I've been handling the card, and I am heat setting that all over, and I just absolutely love that shine. But I felt like this card needed a little something extra, so I'm going back in with my embossing ink pad again, and I'm just running it along the edges of the card, and then I'm going to add my pumice powder again all around the edges, and then heat set that just to give that a little bit of something extra. And I didn't want those lines to be perfect. I wanted them to be a little bit uneven and rugged, just to kind of go with the feel of the abstract nature of the card and the mountains. And so once that is all done, I feel like that's really finished the card off nicely, so I'm really pleased with that. So that's the first 2 cards done. So we're going to go on to our third and final card. Now this one is a little bit more experimental. I've decided to get my embossing ink pen, and this is a pen that Wow makes, and it's just got embossing ink in the tip, So I'm just freestyle drawing on some little lines along the pink section. And then I'm going to add the kiln powder over the top, again, giving it a shake, make sure all of that powder and all of the components are kind of nicely mixed up. And then I'm just going to pour it over where I have drawn on with the embossing pen. And you can see it works so well, and you can get some quite fine lines. So it's really nice for adding detail to projects. I'm going to do the same thing again with the blue section, and this time I'm just making my lines a little wavy as if it's the sea, and we're adding some little waves on. And then I'm coming in with my Admiral powder and I'm going to pour that over the top. Again, after each one of these, I am heat setting them before I moved on to the next powder, but I'm not going to show you that in the video because you get the gist. You don't have to see it every time. For the sun, I've added some dashed lines around the edge of the sun. So I did 2 lots of those. And then I went back in and just did another 2 dashed lines closer to the centre of the sun as well, just for a little bit of extra detail. I kind of felt like it needed that. And then for this little circle up in the sky, which I guess is a moon or something, I have added some lines going from the centre out towards the edges, and it finally heat setting that. So that's gone from being quite a plain card to having a load of extra detail, a load of extra interest and texture. And that's what I really love about these mixed media powders. I mean, I'm not traditionally a mixed media artist. I am more of a card maker generally, but I really feel like they just add another dimension to my card making. They really kind of make it stand out. So to finish off this card, I just wanted some quite small, simple sentiments because I didn't want to take too much attention away from the heat embossing on my card. So I've just used some of these small sentiments from the same stamp set that I used earlier. I'm trimming them down with my Tim Holtz guillotine. And this is how I always do my sentiments, even for tiny ones like this, because I have a little trick to make sure that my sentiments are always nice and even and straight. So what I do is I line the top of the words up with, see that plastic guideline there, the little piece of plastic on the top. Line the top of the words up with that exactly, then flip it over and then do the same with the bottom of the words, and that way you know you're cutting it exactly straight and it gives you an even amount of cardstock both above and below the word. So that's just a little helpful hint if you didn't know that already when you're cutting down sentiments. So I'm just going to pop these on with a bit of liquid glue. Usually I use foam tape when I'm putting my sentiments on, but I didn't want them to be too prominent. I really wanted the focus to be the ink blending and the detail that we added with the embossing powders. So that finishes up the 3 cards for today's video. I know we raced through those pretty quickly. So if there is anything that you would like to know more about or more detail on, please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know which one is your favourite. I hope that's given you some inspiration on how to use mixed media powders to add a bit of texture and interest to your projects. And I look forward to seeing you again for another video soon. Bye.